This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information.
Because I also think in terms of investing, micro neighborhood is more important. And I even highlight a dude who's doing rental arbitrage here, who has a similarly looking Airbnb in the same neighborhood, Poblado. He has 5 bedrooms. He's got a hot tub just like me. But he's making 1/3 of what I'm making. And I believe it's because of his micro neighborhood. He's 15-minute drive from Parque Lleras. I'm a 5-minute walk. And it's that, our guests, our guests don't want to be 15-minute walk, 15-minute drive. They want to be 5-minute walk.
Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Danny Rusteen, aka Danny Boo Boo. He's the author of Optimize My Airbnb and the new book, Profitable Properties. Danny, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good. Thanks for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. So Optimize My Airbnb is how people know you best. That's the name of your YouTube channel, your Instagram handle as well, different platforms. And I think this is your second big book launch. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Profitable Properties?
That's correct. On October 31st, I was in Brazil and I decided by divine inspiration, because I never thought I'd write a new book after I optimized your Airbnb. It was like hard work. and I was like, I did good, thank God. But I didn't think I'd write another book. Just too much very hard work. So, so I decided then to write it. And I was originally planning to publish it by the end of January, just to write kind of an update to the last book. But after I got done with the outline, I realized this is a new book. And it turned out to be 400-page encyclopedia. And it takes a more overall look for people who are interested in short-term rentals, not just Airbnb. Airbnb is going to be a part of it, but I'm talking more about for example, the first main section is how to find profitable markets, how to identify micro neighborhoods, I call them, and run the numbers on properties. And so that's out as of it's out, baby.
It's out, baby. Awesome. And I guess for continuity, should mention that you were one of our very first guests on the My Latin Life podcast. I think literally episode 3, because we had the OG Vance, then we had Mark Solo, the Naughty Nomad, and then I think you were episode 3. So we appreciate your support from the beginning, and now here we are a year and a bit later, and thought it would be a good chance to catch up and see what's new.
I'm honored to be mentioned in the same sentence as those other fellas.
Well, having you on and the early guests really helped us continue to get good guests over time, and I think we've had a pretty cool spectrum of guests, travelers, investors, CEOs, digital nomads, things like that, authors. So I try to mix it up.
You do indeed, and you do that well, and I'm glad to be back.
Thank you. I'm trying to think where to start, because we were spitballing topics, and there's so much I'd love to discuss with you, but I guess maybe just catch us up with what's the past year been like. I know you've been mostly in Medellin, but also doing a little bit of traveling. I remember you were. I have one thing for you. I remember you were you were in Madrid in one of the big parks there with your shirt off, and you're doing selfie videos, and you're like, why am I the only one with my shirt off here? And I'm like, oh my God, dude, you can't really do that in Spain.
Which still is surprising to me. Somebody, I don't know if I posted a follow-up story to that, but somebody replied to my story and said no one has their shirt off because it's illegal. And so I confirmed that with two other people when I was like just randomly walking around. I had to ask. Two other people, sure enough, said, "Yeah, it is illegal." And the day I arrived in Madrid was the Pride Festival, and I'm from San Francisco. So when there's Pride Festival, guys having their shirts off is the least of what's going on. And I noticed on Pride Festival in Madrid, nobody had their shirt off. Like this was the first thing. Everyone was clothed. I was like, "What's going on?" And so that was my first like kind of odd interaction with not. And keep in mind the weather was like 105 degrees, so shirtless weather for sure.
And I guess for people unfamiliar with what you look like, you're like extremely jacked for like what's your height and weight?
I'm five. I'm thinking in centimeters and kilograms. I'm 5'11", and I weigh 195 pounds.
Oh, I thought you weighed way more than that. But you can bench like insane.
I look bigger. I've heard that. Like I look bigger than I am. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why. I've got good chest and trap muscles. Good genetics there. So maybe that's why.
But you know what's funny with the Spain thing is that it helped me connect the dots because in Latin America, you can't really walk around with your shirt off. Um, I would try to push the limits and I'd be going to parks or whatever, like going hiking. You'd think if you go hiking in Latin America in a trail with your shirt off, you'd think that would be chill. But then you reach some sort of, post where there's a security guy and they always say, put your shirt back on. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. But it must be something that's a byproduct of Spain that comes from the old country.
Yeah, yeah, but it also wasn't 40 degrees. I mean, it was like so hot out there. I kind of had to take my shirt off. I was like, it's just too hot. Here, it gets into the or 40, 100 degrees. Here, it gets into the 80s, maybe the 90s, but at least it's more moderate. Yeah, they have some weird culture about they all wear pants too, pants
Hmm.
and no sandals. I don't know about pants. I know all throughout Latin America. No sandals here in Colombia, specifically in Medellin, is a sin. It's an absolute no-no. It disqualifies you from inclusion in regular society if you're wearing sandals outside the home.
And speaking of Medellin, so you have the property there that you publicize a lot, the Belmonte Penthouse, which is, I guess, a four-bedroom Airbnb and kind of your highlight property there. When did you launch the Belmonte? Because I feel like it was just shortly before we had you on the previous time.
The Belmonte Penthouse is not only a four-bedroom, four-bathroom Airbnb, but it is the best short-term rental in the world.
Okay.
I'm smiling when I say that. I bought this in August 2021, but I was looking for it since December 2020.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I think we recorded the first one in December 21 or January 22, and I guess you're probably still putting the final touches on it and getting those first reservations.
Yeah, first reservations came at the very end of 2022.
21.
2021, yeah.
Right, right. And so here we are, 15, 16 months later, and it's a resounding success. I'm pretty sure you have, 95% occupancy, and it's been a huge ROI for you.
Yep, I just opened it up. I'm at 5.0 rating still and 78 reviews. So it's going very well.
And I know in the new book, Profitable Properties, you mentioned how, and I'd love for you to expand on this, but you talk a little bit how you don't need a million Airbnbs. You need a concentrated number of excellent and highly profitable Airbnbs.
Yeah, that's what separates me from other gurus, Airbnb experts, short-term rental experts. If you look, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just my preference. I'm not interested in getting a portfolio of other people's money, 10, 20, 100 listings. Because that's actually, it's just, you have to start managing teams. It's things that I don't want to do. What I much prefer to do is wait and find the best deal. So the Belmonte Penthouse, I'm getting there. There's a common measure in real estate. It's called cash on cash return.
Hmm.
And the on short term rentals, if you're getting 20%, 30%, 40% is like a very rare. It's extremely rare. 40%. I'm getting on the Belmonte Penthouse 90%, and so it's because what I'm doing is if you're trying to get a million listings, you're basically looking for minimums. Our minimum is 20% return, etc. And let's go, let's buy it, let's move, let's go. And you hear that echoed a lot. Hey, you don't have time to like sit back and wait. Someone else is going to grab up that deal. Part of that has to do with that I invest internationally. Although this year I plan to go to the US and maybe buy one there. It depends, but there's so many benefits of investing internationally that I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of my search in the US, I realize it's just not, I'm not interested in 30% return. I'm interested in 90% return.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely an interesting topic in terms of investing in the US versus Latin America. Do you think Latin America, by definition, kind of has higher returns, or do you just like the adventure aspect of it?
It has higher returns, period. I mean, it must have higher returns as well. You're in a third world country, you have currency exchange risk. Um, the financial system is much less developed. So there's sometimes I see investment deals and they're advertising like 10%, 12% return in third world countries and in Latin America, and I'm like, well, that's not seems like a great deal
It's not
because
compensating you for the risk.
exactly, it's not compensating you for the risk. Why don't, if you're going to get 10, 12%, why don't you just do that in the US where you can put down 5%? So it doesn't really make sense to me. But I've known from, it's not only real estate as well. There's other, because the labor here is so cheap as well. That's a big part of it. Um, Cheap labor, whether you're renting, whether you're doing a cafe or a short term rental.
And so, like, people do have to scale in some way, though. You're going to have to buy another property. You're going to have to grow, right? And so, how do you kind of think about that? You just want to do like one Airbnb per country and just kind of keep it chill, and like it's basically just like you and the cleaning lady almost, or I guess you have a property manager, or not even, because it's like keyless entry.
Yeah, so any of your audience it is keyless entry, but I have concierges that do a live check-in. So here's a hack for everybody. Your cleaner is your natural property manager. Nowadays, with the tools and the automation, you should save money on the property manager because most people, I talk with hosts every single day. And a lot of times they complain about the property managers. I rarely hear a compliment about the property manager. And so property management is difficult, by the way. I have my own company and I used to do it on a larger scale back in the day. But I teach, hey, remote management. Now you still need someone on the ground, but that person should be your cleaner. They're already at your house. Why not have them start paying your bills, have them start coordinating maintenance, have them start dealing with guest issues? It just makes sense to me.
Hmm. And I think one of the big value adds of the property manager is some of them do the pricing, and they kind of get involved in making sure that you have 100% occupancy and kind of dynamic pricing. But with you being such an expert in that, I guess you do the pricing, and then all you kind of need is someone to kind of do the low value manual tasks.
That's a good and interesting point, and it's true. But the value there is much less than you expect. So me kind of being on the inside, I know that property managers sell, hey, we price your listing, and they do. But I think what homeowners, potential short-term rental owners think is that, okay, this company is going to do like deep market research and they're going to be monitoring my price on a daily basis and changing it. That's not actually what happens. In fact, pricing is a big complaint of people who use property managers.
Uh,
So, yeah. And pricing isn't that hard, actually. In my new book, Profitable Properties, I have a section, part 5, pricing, and it lays out my strategy. And I talk about it. it can look complicated from the outside, but I have a two step strategy that teaches you basically it's more I bring it down to an X, if X then Y. We price our listings based on the occupancy, the future occupancy. Okay, if I want my future occupancy, just to give a quick easy example, if I want my future occupancy to be about 50% 30 days into the future and it's 30%, then I need to lower my pricing. If it's 70%, then I need to raise my pricing. So there's some rules around that, so you don't have to really sit there and think like, well, I don't know what to price my. I have no idea. Well, now you do. What's your occupancy goal and what's your actual occupancy? Adjust based on that.
Got
It
it.
takes
Got
30
it.
seconds a week.
Yeah, I don't want to get too in the weeds because we'll be linking up the book and people can get that. I want to just like keep things fun. You have so much. There's so much we can talk about in terms of like international travel, digital nomad stuff. I did have one random question though, which is, do you then pay your cleaner for every visit, or do you just kind of hire them as a monthly employee because you can get a monthly employee in Colombia for I don't know $400 a month, something like that?
It's on an individual basis. For me, I pay her per cleaning. I pay her good per cleaning, and that includes other things. She also cleans. She cooks breakfast, for example, and she'll do everything that I said earlier: maintenance, pay bills, replenish consumables. If you hire them, you have to be careful. There are some strict employer laws here in Colombia, which like if she is it could get pretty aggressive. Like even if she's not at work and she's like kind of maybe coming to work or maybe doing something for work, and she gets like accident or something, I could be and probably would be liable for like obscene amounts. Um, so that's a risk if you go the employee route. Of course, that's a whole different topic. But
Got it.
um, yeah,
All right, so keep him as a contractor.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And do you think for the next step, you mentioned the US, but do you think you would double down and get another one in Medellin, or would you try to diversify and maybe do one in Tulum or somewhere else?
I would. Yeah, you touched on this or just a second ago. Like people want to expand and whatnot, and that's true. They do for sure. Once you start short-term rentals and you learn from me and become good, you're gonna probably want another one because it's really good money actually. But my only point is like I think of this like just as like a hobby. Let's think of it as a hobby. It's like not I dedicate 100% of my time to it. Obviously, I dedicate a lot of my time because it's involved with my work. But like it's a hobby in that okay, this deal I looked for this deal, it came up, I made a purchase. Now I have other investments and I have other sources of income. Um, and am I looking for another house? Yeah, passively. If something comes up, I keep my eyes open, but I'm not actively looking for one and feeling forced to buy one. We might be going into a depression, which is a time I would buy because the deals would be good enough to make me, put that as a focus. But right now, I'm not sure where I'll buy. I'm actually kind of interested because I'm going to be applying, the principles I outline in the book, and I'm looking through all
Hmm.
of the U.S. because I'm not. It could be anywhere in the U.S. and I'll be identifying which ones are I think the most profitable and for what reasons.
What's your hunch? Is it like New Orleans and Nashville and these sort of party cities to kind of redo the formula you had before?
No, I break down markets into two: a discovered and undiscovered. And the ones you said are discovered, and it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that there's a lot more competition. There's also a lot more guest arrivals coming there and known. But I think what I would probably end up doing is getting an undiscovered market, which doesn't mean it's like unknown. It's just like maybe locally discovered. It probably has. It's probably like a destination where there's a few big cities within drivable distance, and it's somewhat of a fly-in destination as well. It has various draws. There could be whatever that may be for hiking or like parks. Maybe there's like some medical tourism going on, like sports park, big malls. I don't know what that is, but I'm more than that. I'm not sure.
And so what would you say to people who want to get into this game? I think everyone has stayed in Airbnbs. Everyone is kind of passively interested in real estate, and just a lot of people haven't pulled the trigger on having a short-term rental, especially in Latin America. I'd say most digital nomads that have been doing this for at least 2 years are all like, damn, I need to get an Airbnb, because they see the difference between the local rent price and what it costs an Airbnb. How a local rent might be like $500, and then on Airbnb it's 1,500. It's very easy to sort of put two and two together.
If you what I would do if you're like kind of mostly unfamiliar with this is don't rush it, but have that as a goal in your mind. And if as long as you have that as a goal in your mind, you'll start noticing things that you otherwise may not have noticed. Like, okay, I want to invest in Medellin. And you'll start noticing different things, different houses. You'll start noticing for sale signs and where your guests might go. And you'll start noticing the foreigners versus the locals. Where's the foot traffic going? Just like I think the profits are in the subtleties, the details, and like because I think I'm doing so well with this is because I was very familiar with the city. I knew exactly where the guests wanted to come. I was, after all, a first time guest back in 2014 here, so I felt that I knew exactly what the guests want, where they wanted to be.
And I guess we haven't mentioned it, but it's definitely part of your kind of tagline that you've spent over 2,000 nights in Airbnbs personally as a guest.
That's true. 2000 nights. Airbnb actually just updated their platform, which they should have done a long time ago, which is it shows your recent trips, which is kind of cool. I think they should like add a map, and you can color in the map when you stayed in an Airbnb in
do,
each country.
do they have a total, or you're manually calculating that?
No, this was me manually calculating it.
I wonder what I'd be at. Definitely in the hundreds.
They should definitely show that because that kind of gamifies it a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
They
think
should
so.
give they should incentivize you, right? Like hit 100 nights, hit 1,000 nights, get a discount on the stupid fees or something like that.
Yeah, they've got super host, so isn't it just natural to do
Super
super
guest.
guest?
Right, because then they're a good guest. They're not there to party and tear the place apart. And it's like, look, once you hit 1,000 nights, maybe we'll drop it from 10% processing fee to
There we
8%.
go.
I don't know.
Yeah, guest. I think they're missing a huge opportunity of guest loyalty, and what you just said is part of it. Guest loyalty. I don't know why would I go to Airbnb anywhere else? There's nothing really drawing me to Airbnb except that if it's just straight a better platform, which is very usable. But why not capitalize on that and add in some extra guest loyalty? Airbnb, if you're listening, do it.
Yeah, I do want to prod you a bit on this 2,000 plus nights. Just to it's something I've been curious about for a while.
Hmm.
Specifically your situation. So let's just say you get a 1 month Airbnb, Playa del Carmen, blah blah blah. When let's just say you want to stay an additional month in Playa del Carmen, are you always going to book that second month on Airbnb, or do you ever go to the guest and say, hey, or the host, sorry, and say, hey, let's do this off Airbnb, 20% less. I got the cash, blah blah blah.
Well, I almost never stay 2 months. The reason why I'm at 2000 nights is because for the vast, vast, vast majority of my time, even when I'm here in Medellin, I move by the month. So I'm in now a neighborhood. I paid Airbnb for 1 month, and then I'll go to a different. I like variety, so I'll go to a different one. With that said, there is a few situations, and interestingly enough, one of those situations was Playa del Carmen, where I went. I think it might have been last year or 2 years ago, and I stayed for 3 months. And
Hmm.
so the second 2 months, where I stayed for 2 months, and the month afterward, I liked my place, and I paid offline.
Yeah, I remember you went this summer and you were like sweating.
In Playa, yeah, it's hot, man. It's hot coming from just like
Okay,
walking around. I was sweating.
so you're all yeah. I remember you were just like, oh my god,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's because yeah, it got really annoying at the end. I went in the months that
and then
not only it
July.
was hot, but it was super humid. And so,
Yeah.
I just took a shower. I'm good to go. I got shorts and flip flops in and a tank top, and you go outside, and within 30 seconds, your eyebrows are
Yeah.
dripping wet, and you're all
Yeah,
sweaty.
baby.
That's your pants are all wet. It's that yeah, that was kind of annoying going that yeah.
Yeah, we can actually come back to that to talk about seasonality in travel, which is very important in Latin America. I definitely want to talk to you about kind of how you pick neighborhoods, how you pick cities, where to stay, because I think you understand the logistics of that better than most, and we can kind of talk about that. But I want to keep prodding you on this 2000 nights thing. So, are you only looking at Airbnb when you're looking at somewhere to go? Do you ever even consider a hotel or another platform?
I sometimes do hotels, but very rarely. I'm trying to think of the last time I did a hotel. Besides, I stay in hotels here in Medellin as like a marketing tactic, and I stay there for a couple nights and I do a review on it. But outside of that, yeah, very rarely. I mean, if I would say 90% of my travels, I am paying for an Airbnb, and 10% I'm in a hotel, staying with a friend, or booking direct.
Right. And you never like because at this point you do go back to the same cities a fair bit. You probably have some local contacts. Um, so you could, and you speak like decent Spanish and Portuguese. You could easily just look at those Serenta ads walking around the neighborhood, hit them up on WhatsApp, strike up a deal, or alternatively, you could have like real estate middlemen. I have some of these in Playa del Carmen and other spots where I say, hey, man, I'm trying to come in for a month. Can you finagle me a deal? And they'll say, hey, yeah, we got this for 1,500. We got this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sick. Let's close it. I'll send the money transfer wise. Um, do you almost feel like you're overpaying on Airbnb, but you're doing it for like research purposes, or you like the convenience?
It's time is money, and that's why Airbnb I can go on, I can book something. I know I have retribution in terms of the review. I tried that once, only once, when I was in Manila because it's kind of expensive, Philippines, and I think I decided to like reach out to some buildings or something or post something on Facebook,
Hmm.
and it was just a lot of time. I realized this is a waste of time. I could spend 2-3 hours doing this, or I can, do something else, and I value my time pretty highly. So simply for that reason, if there's some things that work out, like and I'm sure it's different by different markets, like Manila isn't super touristy, kind of is, but like Playa del Carmen will be more so. So there might be a more structured network set up there where you can go to agents. They have agents set up scouring Facebook groups. But for me, it's just simply ease, and maybe a little bit marketing as well at this point, because of the Airbnb short-term rental gurus, none of them can say they worked at Airbnb, and also none of them can say they live in Airbnbs. So that like, at least in my mind, puts me in a very distinct category.
Yeah, it definitely contributes to the authority. I feel like you're good though. Like I don't know if how much marginal benefit you'll get from 3,000 nights or 4,000 nights.
Yeah, I hear you. But again, it's just I think it's just ease. I have to. I'm moving by the month, so if I have to, and I do go visit new cities, but I mean the same cities, but I also like to visit different cities. Like I'm going back to Kazakhstan. I'm going to do another my fifth world tour coming up here, and I'll go to Kazakhstan in a few months. And I know Almaty. I liked Almaty, and I would be more than happy going back to Almaty. But I have this. I'm going to go to Nur Sultan, which is the name. It used to be I forget what the Astana. It used to be Astana. So I'm going to go
Stunning.
there. Oh, a good example is Brazil. I've been to various cities in Brazil, and I just went there a few months ago, and I decided to go to Belo Horizonte, which I liked, and
Hmm.
Campinas, which is
Hmm.
45 minutes an hour north of Sao Paulo.
Right.
And Campinas was horrible, for lack of a better word. It wasn't like necessarily horrible, but for my reasons, for my wants of traveling, it was horrible. It was very residential. It wasn't touristy, which is usually cool, but like there was no one walking on the streets. It was kind of sleepy. It was hard to meet people. Same at the gym, wasn't all that epic. So sometimes I fail, but I do have this like need or like really want to go and explore different cities, even if I know, hey, I know I like Sao Paulo. I know I like Rio, but hey, let's go to Campinas. Sometimes it works out.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And then here's the thing I'll push back is like it's with Airbnb, it's very difficult to get a refund. If either you don't like I had a situation recently where my place was like right beside a construction site, and obviously they never tell you that. And I said, "Look, I want a refund. I don't want to live beside a construction site for a whole month." And they said like, "No, that's not grounds for a refund." Airbnb said that. And I was like, so you can kind of get screwed a couple ways.
I'm I haven't asked for a refund in a while. The last time I asked that when I was actually in Rio de Janeiro and there was a bunch of construction going on and they did give me a refund. I've asked for it a few times, but in the last 3 years I haven't asked for it because the last because I have, I on my profile I'm public about who I am.
Hmm.
If I leave a bad review for a host and this has happened, they can go on and leave me negative book reviews and go on my website and leave me negative reviews on Google and this and that. They can, downvote all my YouTube videos. They could do a lot of damage for one of that, and a lot of people are spiteful. So I basically always give 5-star reviews and don't ask for a refund except in like egregious cases. I think twice I've rated the host less than 5 stars.
Today's episode is sponsored by Bitrefill. Bitrefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. It offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, all paid for with crypto. And the best part is this is not just in the USA and Canada, but all across the world and all across Latin America, with gift card options in Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% Bitcoin back into that Bitrefill account for your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. And I think another thing about Airbnb that you wouldn't fall for this because you're only doing 1 month rentals, but I always tell people never do more than a month because there's some sort of like clause with Airbnb that you can only kind of get the refund on the first 28 days or something, but if it's like a 2 month or 3 month Airbnb, you can't really get that money back if you need a refund. I forget the exact relationship, but I remember there being very little upside to doing longer than a month.
That's probably great advice. Yeah, I don't think I've ever booked more than a month. It doesn't really make sense as well because a month in advance is like kind of when people are booking. So you can go somewhere and then spend at least a few days there and figure out if you like it. What if you book for 2 or 3 months and you don't like the place?
Hmm.
That kind of sucks. So I think a month is sufficient. Yeah, that's good advice.
And one last question. What do you do about slow Wi-Fi? Like I had a situation recently where I even messaged them before I booked. I said, look, I need fast Wi-Fi. One of the reviews said the Wi-Fi wasn't great. And they're like, no, 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 it's all good. The Wi-Fi has been fixed. And then I get there and then the Wi-Fi sucked. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Now I need a co-working. And then I said, guys, at least pay for my co-working. And they said, no, we're not paying for your co-working. Uh, 13 megabytes is fast enough for most things. I'm like 13 megabytes, bro. Like, what are you talking about? We
Yeah.
it's like I almost needed a refund, but then Airbnb says, "Oh, slow Wi-Fi or 13 megabyte Wi-Fi isn't grounds for a refund." That must happen a fair bit.
Yeah, I've got a good story about that. Well, so first of all, you can ask them to take a screenshot. Hey, run speed test and take a screenshot of that because even if they're doing it, if they're doing it somewhere else and then you get there, you're like, well, this is what the screenshots that I have proof and not. So at least you get a refund there. That may be
I
a
find that they
workaround.
typically say like, "Oh, I'm not in the unit. I can take a screenshot in 3 days," and you're like, "God damn! I just want to make a decision on my Airbnb."
Okay. Well, you can also have them say like, "Hey, what's the megabyte?
Yeah.
What's the down upload speed?" There's also something on Airbnb. Sometimes you have. Do they still have it? Did they get rid of it? Huh. I don't know why they got rid of it. Okay. Oh, you can go to amenities. And I think in amenities, if the host can actually test their Wi Fi and it'll say, I'm on mine right now checking just to verify. Oh, Wi Fi. It doesn't even say that. Wow. They got rid of that. That is strange. They used to have it on there, the actual speed. The host could do a speed test and it would show it.
Hmm.
They got rid of that for some reason. But it has happened to me a lot of times, and that's kind of the one downside. One of the downsides of Airbnb. I was here. I booked a place. I asked for a discount. They gave me a discount, and then when I got there, I couldn't figure out the Wi-Fi, and they said they said they there was like a portable Wi-Fi thing that I'd never seen before. So okay, I got that set up, and then a half day later, that stopped working. And I reached out to the host and I was like, "Hey, what's going on with this Wi-Fi?" And he's like, "Oh, let me check. Let me check with my partner." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So like a day later, 2 days later, he comes back and he's like, "Oh, because we gave you a discount, we decided not to renew the Wi-Fi. You can take that device to the local store and sign up for a plan."
That's insane.
Isn't that fucking insane? I was like, "What?" Oh my god. So I don't know what I did there. To be honest, I mean those days I went to co-workings, which is okay, but it's kind of inconvenient sometimes. I think I use my cell phone data. Um, that's the biggest downside with Airbnb. Yeah, I'm at a unit now. They don't provide a blender, so I had to go buy one.
It's
And
another
then
one. You and me, we're big blender guys.
a blender's a common amenity. I mean, unless you're really bottom of the barrel, like cheap budget listing, a blender's a common thing that you should
I,
have.
I'd say it's only like 50% of units.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes look specifically for blenders or ask them if I don't see it in the listing. And I asked them to buy it. This time they didn't. They said no. They also didn't have scissors. I was like looking for scissors the other day. They didn't have scissors, and I asked if they could provide it. Guess what they said?
Tell me.
Like, we're sorry, we don't provide that item. I was like, what? They also have an oven. They got an oven, right? But they have nothing to use with the oven. No oven mitts, nothing to put in the oven to cook. Like
Like trays.
nothing. So the inconsistency is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, wine openers. Sometimes they won't have a wine opener, and then I'm like at the store and I have to buy the one bottle that's twist off.
Yeah. Can
the
opener, cutting board, strainer. There's a lot of
the
missing amenities, common missing
the
amenities.
blender is the biggest one I feel because if you can't have smoothies, it really screws up your whole like gym vibe for the month.
Yeah, also it's more like a scissors are at $3, but a blender can be 30, 40, $50.
And so, what would you ever do if they just like refuse to provide it? Because I know you're like religious about your gym and stuff.
I'd buy one. I bought one this time. I mean, yeah. Well, I told them, I was like, you know what else they didn't have? They didn't have detergent either. If you have a washer, you got to have detergent. Otherwise, I've got to go and buy a big thing of detergent for your guests. So I went and I bought detergent, and then I asked them for the blender, and they're like, we don't provide that. And I was like, all right, well, I bought you detergent as well for your future guests. I guess I'll buy you a blender for your future guests as well. And they didn't respond to that, but I hope I got the point across, which I didn't, because then I asked for scissors, and they're like, oh, we don't provide scissors.
Dude, it's insane how Airbnbs, and sorry if this episode is now just us complaining about small first world problems on Airbnb, but it's insane how they just won't have water in country. It'll be a country where you can't drink the tap water, and then they don't even provide even like 1 liter of water, and then there'll be not even like a bar of soap, and it's like I can't drink water and I can't have a shower. Like when I show up from the airport, these things would cost $2, and it makes such a big difference.
Huge difference, yeah. Especially if you're like, it happened to me numerous times. I'm traveling all day long. I'm in a foreign country. I arrive late at night. I don't know if I can drink the water out of the tap. I assume I can't. I don't really know where to go as well. Everything might be closed. So it's
Right.
like, all right, I'll go to bed and, just have not that night. Yeah, these are things that separate, good hosts from bad hosts. And it's not even that complicated. Like we're talking about water, buy a water. It's not rocket science here. Buy scissors.
So what do you think? Like, tell us a little bit about the trip that you're planning for this year for the world tour. Tell us about the world tour.
I'm still planning the world tour. I've been like in these past 6 months have been the busiest of my entire life doing this book. I haven't, my watch broke. I've got like stains on my clothes, holes in my pants. I haven't had time to do any of that stuff. Like it's been crazy insane. But I did recently just kind of have a gander, and I think I'm looking at. So I usually do a trip around the world. I go to Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, and then sometimes stop in Europe as well. So this time there's a direct flight to Madrid, And so I'll go do that, and then I'll take a train out to Barcelona. I'll go to, and I don't like layovers, so I schedule my trips wherever I can have the least layovers. Ideally, no
Yep.
layovers.
Direct
So
flights
Madrid,
only.
direct flight, yeah. And then from Madrid, I can go to. I'm going to go to Kazakhstan. There is one layover there, but after that, it's all direct flights. And then I'll go to. What's on the list is Bali to visit my best friend. The Philippines. I liked Jakarta as well, and then I'm going to go to like Cambodia, I think, and I like Thailand. Yeah, oh, Vietnam. Vietnam is probably my favorite Southeast Asia
Mm-hmm.
country. I'll
Mm-hmm.
definitely go back there.
Heard you talk about that. Yeah. So I think the anomaly there is Kazakhstan, where you've been before. Um, Tell us a little bit about Kazakhstan and why you like it.
I liked it because it was okay. The people are super friendly, and I know that's generally generic, but I actually like genuinely made friends there. We went on this trip to see this hieroglyphic. I don't know how to say the word, but like things that were written 3,000 or 10,000, I forget, years ago on rocks, and like it was a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But when you go to these places, like I could actually, if I wanted to, I could get my own rock and draw my own thing on that rock because they let you get up close and look at it. Whereas when you're in super populated areas, you have to wait extra lines. It costs more. There's a barrier 10 feet away from what you're actually trying to look at. So that was a cool, unique experience. And we were literally driving through like just there was horses crossing the road and cows and goats and whatnot. And I went with a couple friends. I met people at the gym, super friendly. There was a good mix of like um, Eurasians and also just straight up Russians. It was super clean. Like the streets, the sidewalks. I know you're in Panama. I'm here in Colombia. I've been to Dominican Republic. A lot of these places, the sidewalks are like all dirty, and there's weeds coming up, and it's trashy. Like the sidewalks and the streets were clean. The air was clean. You could drink the water. There was a metro system. The weather was nice. I was just the cafe scene was good. I was generally impressed with the infrastructure, the friendliness of the people, and the affordability, the walkability as well. It was yeah, it was kind of impressive, to be honest. I'm looking forward to going back there.
I thought it'd be cool to get into a little bit of your rules around travel and kind of how you book things, how you think about logistics and where to stay. I'm wondering if we should start on the logistics of the city or what part of your travel rules. But I definitely want to dig into it because I think you have a lot of good value there.
Yeah, I've got. This is actually touching on another book that I wrote, but I have criteria that I've developed. There's like I forget how many there are. There's like 19 or 20 different criteria that I look for in a city, and then of course, like if I'm getting super technical, all right, I got like 19 criteria, and then I compare that to the cost of living, and that tells me like where I want to go. But if we zoom out a little bit. I'm traveling, if I'm just being real, the big main factors I'm traveling based on are weather, women, and cost of living.
It's a good big three.
Yeah, that's my big three. Now, walkability is super important to me, but there's basically almost always a walkable area in the city. Dominican Republic is an exception. Or Santo Domingo specifically. San Salvador and El Salvador is also an exception, super not walkable. So there's a few that are not, but generally that's a life hack, including staying in Airbnbs, by the way, is a life hack because it's maybe more expensive, but it's just efficient. I don't have to deal with any kind of bills. I don't have to, when you, anyways. Let me know if you want me to go on that life hack. But walkability is
Yeah,
another
no, I
life
like it.
hack.
I like the a life hack. I think about it too because I think about. I guess this is an aside, but I think about getting the lease, and then I think about how nice it's been to have no lease for the past like 5 years and less responsibility and stuff. And I'm like, how much extra per month am I willing to pay to have no responsibility?
Yeah. It's no responsibility and it's your time. How much do you value your time? And what are you going to have to do when you move out? You're going to have to clean your space. You're going to have to repair your space. That's a few days activity. And then you move out, you have to do something with your furniture. And then they're going to say, "Hey, you didn't do this well, so we're going to take half your security deposit or you even owe us more." Um, That is something that I just avoid. And then, of course, I mentioned the utilities. I don't have water utilities, electricity, garbage, gas, cable TV. All that stuff is included. It's plug and play.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if on the previous episode we went through your list of the 20 criteria. I want to think we did, because I think you kind of had that hashed out. But maybe let's double down on talking about the benefits of what we call the vortex zone, or living in that walkable neighborhood. So, do you always try to identify that one, gringoified walkable neighborhood and stay there? Or maybe on the flip side, you purposely don't stay there because you want to be, more badass. How do you think about it?
If I'm going to a super popular, a discovered market, to touch on what we talked about, then I'm probably looking at the second, third, or fourth most popular neighborhood, depending on how big the city is. Because in the second, third, or fourth popular neighborhood, in these discovered super popular neighborhoods, like Madrid is a good example, the first one is just too much. But the second, third, and fourth, they're still close enough. They still have good infrastructure. They still have a good cafe scene. They're still walkable. If I'm going to a place that's not as popular, for example, I made this mistake in when I went to Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. I stayed at like the second or the third, I can't remember, most popular area. And I generally like doing that because it's more authentic of an experience. But in this case, it was a mistake because everything was there's it's a smaller city and not popular, not touristy. So there's the main neighborhood is the neighborhood you'd want to stay at for the good infrastructure and the most walkability. Even though that city's not super walkable, that's how I think about it. So when I go to like Almaty or Kazakhstan, I'll go to the most central areas. If I'm going to Vietnam, like Saigon, I know there's like five or six or even more like walkable neighborhoods. So I'll probably go to like the fifth or sixth or seventh.
And so, is it mostly like a price thing, or is it a experience thing?
It's an experience thing mostly. Yeah, I think it's more authentic. I can fit in a little bit more and I separate myself a little bit more. So when I go for a month, most people think they first see me, okay, gringo here for a few days. They see me for a week and they start to be like, oh, okay, in the grocery store, or the barber shop, for example, and they're
Hmm.
like, okay, a week. He's been in here twice. That's a little interesting. After like the 10th day, the second week, then they're like, oh, wait, are you living here? And so you form a little bit, you get past the, okay, this guy's here for 2 or 3 days, be nice but superficial stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you think you have a little bit more of an impact when you go to, I guess like if it was a Medellin example, instead of going to Poblado, you'd go to Laureles, or I know you like Envigado, Sabaneta. So kind of like the, third best neighborhood or something. And you feel like prices will be better and you'll just kind of have a more authentic experience.
Yeah, I mean, in Medellin specifically, I stay in Poblado. I prefer Poblado just because I think it's by far and away the best neighborhood.
I liked it, man. I was in Medellin a couple weeks ago. I saw, I don't know if they were guacamayas, but I saw like bright green birds, flying
Yeah,
across the treetops. And I was like, that's so sick. I thought this was only in like Caracas where you get like the real birds like this.
yeah. I think they should, like, even the government should like start a program where they like breed these birds and have more of them, because I think that's such a cool sight though. When you see that, these colorful birds flying around, I think that's like like a magical experience. But it doesn't happen all that often. It's rare.
Yeah, I only saw him a couple times in the week I
Yeah.
was there. I saw him at I went to the castle in Medellin,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
they have the big they have like grounds there and a big garden, and I saw them there. But then I also saw them just from my apartment because it was in Poblado, and it's like very very lush and trees there and less dense in some ways. So I saw some from my window.
That's one of the benefits. I'm sitting here watching. I got trees. My view is trees. I've got the river running outside, though I closed the window. We got blue skies, 70 degrees out probably Saturday. It's nice. It's nice being here for sure. I always leave. And when I'm gone for a few months, Medellin specifically, this only happens with Medellin. I'm always like, oh, I'm looking forward to coming back. I'm always looking forward to coming
Hmm.
back when I come here.
Hmm. So I have a question I want to get into with you. Something I think a little bit about, and I think this has a lot of implications for digital nomads and for kind of the local real estate markets in some of these cities. Is there's the city, and then there's the Gringo Vortex Zone neighborhood, and it's almost like two different realities, not only day to day, but also from a real estate perspective, right? Because the rest of the city could be so undesirable that no one wants to stay there. But the Gringo Vortex Zone can be really quite nice. You got the gym, you got the nightclubs, etc. And when you think about, and first of all, your experience is going to be totally different as a visitor if you stay in one or the other. But then from a real estate perspective, it's like, I mean, there's a couple things to touch upon from a real estate perspective, but it's like, let's say the Gringo Vortex Zone maybe costs 50% more, maybe even double what real estate costs in the rest of the city, but it's so much more desirable from a Airbnb perspective and just from like a standard of living perspective. And I kind of see a world where the Gringo Vortex zones kind of continue to skyrocket in in value and more people coming through, whereas kind of like the normal, I guess you'd call it like blue collar neighborhoods, more or less stay flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And here in Medellin, it's another good example. There's a lot of people coming to Medellin, not only tourists but also like developers, real estate developers, and they have expanded this Gringo vortex, which I've never heard before. And so there's not only Parque Gires is like the main park, and then there's Provenza, but down towards like the Medellin River, there's a neighborhood called Astorga, which just in the past few years has really been up and coming. It's a new Gringo Vortex zone, and then there's another neighborhood called Astorga, which is where I'm staying at this month. So the Gringo Vortex zone has expanded. If there's not this interesting combination of good real estate gringo developers or foreigner developers in these
Mm-hmm.
certain cities, then yeah, it's probably going to have much less growth, and the vortex zone is going to be very small.
Yeah, so Astorga looks interesting. I'm looking at a map. It's like basically Poblado, so very very close. I think the thing is like if you're thinking about where to invest, I think you really want to invest in this vortex zone because it's going to continue to be desirable and it's going to attract the gringos that have kind of higher disposable incomes, right? Like you could take any city, right? Maybe Buenos Aires, I guess. So you'd say it's like there's investing in Palermo and then there's investing anywhere else. And they're almost like two different things.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you can. I mean, what you want to, I mean, how I think about it is I want a home run deal. I invested in where it's already discovered in terms of Colombia,
Hmm.
Provenza, Poblado area. But I got what I thought was and what turned out to be a really good deal. So you can, if I wanted to, I could go a little bit outside of this vortex zone and try and plan out. Okay, if I did that 4 years ago. In Astorga, okay, are we going to expand to Astorga? Is it desirable? If you had a hunch that it would, then it probably makes sense to go there, but you're getting more risky. Whereas, why not just find a great deal in the already established area? And the interesting thing about Medellin, again, is this is the single most desirable area of the whole city. There's nothing even close. The Parque Giras area with the park in the middle and the trees and the river going down and all the nightlife and around, there's nowhere else in the city that comes even close. There's Laureles, but it's very different. Astorga actually has Parque Poblado. It's a different scene because it's next to a main road, but it's also a very cool vibe. Where it's a younger vibe, people going there and drinking at night and just chilling out. But they've got like a walking, like a Provenza type area as well. So there's two different strategies, but I think both of them can work for sure.
Yeah. I think in my experience, just running this Twitter and everything, is that most people aren't willing to take the risk to be in an up and coming neighborhood. They just want the plug and play.
Yep, and that's I mean, that's fine. I didn't want a project on my hands, so I paid a lot more to get a house that was ready. I came in here and, beer was in the fridge, literally ready to go. I paid for that, but it was what I wanted to do. I did not want a hassle on my hands, and kind of rolling the dice with just like with a different neighborhood, maybe a potentially up and coming neighborhood, rolling the dice with contractors and getting all these things ready, and it delays an extra 6 months. So it's just a strategy. I think it can work, but that's the point you're in. That's the reason why you're investing in these third world countries with a lot of potential, is because the returns are higher. You should not be getting the same returns as a U.S. investor gets in the
Hmm.
U.S.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna have more thoughts about this Gringo Zone thing when I get offline, but I knew you were kind of the guy to talk about it because you've been to 100+ cities around the world, and I hope this doesn't sound pejorative, but you were basically going and staying in every Gringo vortex zone all around the world.
That's exactly what I do. No, it's here's my strategy. I start with the gringo zone of the capital city or the main city. That's my
Uh huh.
first touch point with the city. If
Uh
I
huh.
like that, then I go to the second and third and fourth and I branch out. Here in Colombia, I've been to 30 different cities. I've stayed in El Centro in Medellin, which is the most dangerous part of the city. But that's how I do it. That's how I prefer to do it. I think it makes sense. I like it. It's my strategy.
Hmm. And so, would you recommend for? I guess you probably would. You'd recommend for any aspiring digital nomad or first year digital nomad, just stick with the Gringo Zone. And I guess how much would you be willing to pay extra to be in that walkable neighborhood, to be in that Gringo Zone versus a little bit out? Because I think, dude, this is a huge thing. Is people get so caught up with just having a nice Airbnb and having a place with, marble top sinks and whatever, like a balcony. And they don't, and I always try to explain to people that you would rather, my philosophy is you would rather a mediocre Airbnb in a perfect neighborhood than a nice Airbnb in a bad neighborhood because logistics are everything.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, walkability is so I just went back to California. I visited my family out there. That's where I'm from, and this is the second time that it happened to me. And I realized it the last time, but I re-realized it this last time is when I go back there, I am so less efficient. Why am I less efficient? There's one single reason why am I so less efficient in the USA, and it's a car. I have to get in that car and go and drive 15 to 30 minutes to go to the grocery store, to go to the barber shop, to visit family. Then I might have to look for parking. That's an extra 5 to 10 minutes to go to the gym. So I'm doing something a day. I do 3 things a day. That's 3 hours in the car. That
Mm.
is such a waste of time. I will never, I don't think, I don't want to say never, but I probably will not live in a neighborhood, whether it's in the US or here, where I have to drive a car. It's not what I want to do and super inefficient.
Yeah, to me, a car should be for getting out of the city and going on adventures, not for like the day to day.
Yeah. Even in Medellin, I bought a scooter, like an electric scooter, which is
Yeah.
so dope because I can be like a pedestrian. I can be a motorcycle if I want. I ride in the street. I don't yield at stop signs. I just go right through, right on the
That's like
sidewalk if I
my
want.
see. That's one thing I'm missing is I almost want to live somewhere a bit longer term, just so I can get a bicycle and just be, you know, biking along the beachfront boardwalk and all that. I miss having a bike.
Yep. And nowadays you got those electric bikes, right? So you could be a lazy bike.
Yeah.
There's one that my buddy showed me. It's an electric bike. It's basically a motorcycle, but it's still
Hmm.
classified as a bike. So you
Hmm.
you know you don't have to do registration and insurance and all that stuff. I'm actually thinking of getting it here for Medellin.
I think Airbnb should try to offer bikes to guests. It's a bit of a tricky thing, but it'd be sick. It'd be sick.
Well, the unfortunate thing is like this is bigger in the U.S., but it's like liability. Oh, do we want a
Yeah.
hot tub? Liability. Do we want to offer bikes? Liability. It's like, yeah, that's like the main focus. It's like not enjoyment. It's focusing on like the 0.1% of the potential liability.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely why we enjoy Latin America. Is it's less of a consideration. That's more just about enjoying life, less litigious.
Here, here.
How much do you think you'd be willing to pay extra for like a perfect neighborhood? Like if I gave you two options, let's just say in Medellin, I guess, just to keep using the same example, um, or even Panama City, somewhere you know a bit, but it's not your wheelhouse. Let's just say I said, Danny, I got two options for you. I got perfect location for $1,500 a month, and you're going to be on top of you have a gym in your building, you have a top restaurant downstairs, you have a top nightclub a block away, you have a couple coffee shops. It's going to be perfect. Or I said I have another spot for $750, half the price, but it's like on the other side of the highway or something. What are you taking?
If I have the money, I'm going with the more expensive option because if you have money, you value your time more. So if I have the money, I would value my time more, and I would get the more expensive option, no doubt about it. But if I'm saving up or whatnot, and I value my time a little bit less, then I'm gonna go for the cheaper option. At this stage in my life, at least at this point, I would go for the more expensive option. That's what I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially on Airbnb specifically, if you go for the deals, it's more likely you're going to get the short end of the stick because um, these inconsistencies. As you raise your threshold, your price threshold, oftentimes, not always, um, you there's less problems. You're
Right. You're
not next
dealing
to
with
a
a better
construction site.
class of host.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
balcony doesn't open up to another building 2 inches away, or you're not on the second level. I noticed those are big changes when you increase your budget.
Definitely makes sense. That's actually a good consideration, is that it's not just the neighborhood or whatever. There's going to be a lot of more small hiccups when you go for the cheap option.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America. And Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information. Yeah, I guess we can kind of mix it up. I think we kind of belabored the gringo vortex zone enough, and feel free to use that. I didn't invent the term. Do you have another term for that, or how do you call it?
No, I don't even know. I don't know. The Goldilocks zone might be.
What? No, no. It's funny.
Yeah, man. The Goldilocks zone. We're in the gold. We're all in the Goldilocks zone of the universe.
I like it, man. Man, a couple things we could talk about, but tell me a bit about the book in terms of like what was your writing process? Do you try to write like a little bit every day? Do you write in the mornings? Do you write in the evenings? How did you kind of compile everything?
For the book, or just in general?
Yeah, for the book for profitable properties.
Okay, because I'm a writer. I've been a writer. I write. I've had a journal since I was in seventh grade. I've got a website where I write, so I wasn't sure, and I do really enjoy writing. But for the book, I spent a good like 2 weeks on. And by the way, anyone who's interested in writing a book, I get that now that I'm a little bit more known as an author. I get that question every now and then. People, I want to write a book, but I'm not really sure how. I wrote a blog post on my website, Danny Boo Boo, just how to write a book. And so I spent like a good 2 hours writing the outline. And the outline is like super important if you want to write a book type thing or really anything. And I would just I'd spend days on end, man, writing, going to cafes, getting high on caffeine. I went out. That's part of the reason why I moved to El Centro, to get away from, like, kind of social requirements. If I'm in Medellin, I have friends here. And so I can't, I was saying, no, I can't go to this. I can't go to dinner. I can't go to the gym with you. I can't do all this. So you can only do that for like so long, kind of, I noticed. So I like separated myself. I went to the Dominican Republic again as well and finished up the book. and it took the book was 115,000 words, which
No
is
way.
way
That's
yeah.
enormous.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah, so it's enormous, really enormous. And I edited it down to 97,000 words, which is 378 pages it turned out to be.
It's like a
But
solid article is 1,000 words. So that's
exactly.
100 solid articles.
Yeah. Yeah. A typical book, nonfiction book, is going to be like 50,000 words.
Okay.
And that's how much my first book was as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I am looking at the outline or the blog article, how to write and publish a book. So you do you write the outline, you write the draft, you revise the draft, um, title. You hire editors. Is hiring editors always a step? And how do you find editors that understand your niche well enough to like? Do you try to find editors that understand the niche, or just like generic book editors?
There's various types of editors. You do want an editor that understands your niche. Editing fiction and developing storylines is very different than editing nonfiction. There's also editors, especially on Upwork and things like this, who are just think they're editors and they're good writers and they edit on a casual basis. And then you have professional editors who worked somewhat, a professional job, have a degree of writing and grammar, language. A lot of people don't do this. Like a lot of just random authors writing publishing books out, they skip this step where they hire someone that's cheap. I hired someone that was cheap last time, and I got some negative reviews for that. This time, I actually hired someone who was expensive, 6 times more expensive than what I paid the last person. And while he did definitely improve my manuscript, and I'm very grateful for that, the detail editing was subpar. And I noticed myself, common edits, typos, and there's common typos, but there's also like grammatical errors and syntax errors that punctuation errors that I'm not an expert at. So and I'm in over my head, but yeah, you can hire up to, if I were to get this book professionally published, there's like 5 different types of editors that go in. There's line editors, someone who goes in and looks at the foundational concepts, and so editing is a whole different topic.
I think nonfiction books are in an interesting place because, especially with AI, um, because like, is this something you think about at all? Because with nonfiction, it's basically just facts. I feel like AI is just going to be able to write all the nonfiction books that can be written. You know what I mean? I guess obviously you have a specific kind of skill set around Airbnbs, and it's going to be a little bit harder to reproduce that. But they can. Don't you feel like they're just going to be able to like compile all these new kind of history books that have never been written before, or things like that with AI?
Yeah, I think maybe eventually. That's like history books. You said, yeah. But if you're thinking to the future, if you're publishing, like AI is not really AI. It's taking what we already know, what's already online. If there's like some doctor studying in some field of advanced psychology or science, he's publishing a book on that, an AI would never be able to write that. They don't have access to that knowledge. But my manuscript got flagged for being AI.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but it got flagged. I uploaded it, finally ready. Okay, I'm good. I put out 100 fires. And there's 1,000 decisions you have to make writing a book. Good. I just uploaded it. Good. It comes back. Oh, you've been denied for like potentially mass produced or AI. And I was like, motherfucker. So I dealt with that. It was easy. I just sent an appeal in, and they looked at it, and obviously they're like, okay, it's not. And so they undid that. But I do want to make a public service announcement to folks who are interested in reading. And as I am, I read a lot, and I go to Amazon and I look a lot for books. And I've been increasingly more disappointed with the books that I bought. And it's because I think there's 2 things going on. One of them, and mostly, is ghostwriting and AI as well. And so I've realized I've started to develop a way to pick out, even if they have good reviews, pick out shitty books or generic books. And so there's a lot of writers out there. So a shitty generic book is probably going to be some writer. They might have 2, 3, 400 reviews and a 4.5 average, which is good. But one of the ways that I realize they're shitty writers is because they're going to have a bunch of books. They're going to have a bunch of books saying the same thing, but with different titles and different cover photos and slightly different angles of the subject. So when I'm looking for books, and when your listeners looking for books, because I don't want, it's too bad because there's a lot of like low quality books. Go on there and look for like an author who's writing, either famous. I think now you'd have to, I'm gonna defer to famous authors who are known in their field, or authors who have written a book. Like if you've written one book, you probably put a lot into that book, and you want it, even if it didn't do that good, even if it doesn't have that many reviews. I preference authors who have 1 or 2 books rather than an author who has a dozen books on health and fitness, and they're
Yeah,
all
I
kind of
agree with that.
generic.
A
Yeah,
dozen's definitely a little fishy. It's
yeah,
like this guy's cranking it out too much.
yeah.
And that's interesting. And so who was flagging the AI in your book? That was the publisher. It was like Ingram Spark or something.
Yeah, English Spark. I think it was what for whatever reason. So I fucked up big time. There's like I said, there's like a million decisions you have to make, and one of those, on a few of those decisions I fucked up, but on one specifically big one I fucked up, and that was I wanted to book my book on pre-sale for a month before it went on sale, and I messed up the dates. There's 2 dates, and so the book was on sale, but obviously, I wasn't. If the book was ready, I would just put it on sale. So I uploaded a manuscript that wasn't ready, an early manuscript, and it was on sale. So someone would have got that manuscript if they made the purchase. Which I was like, I was like already exhausted, and so I had to spend a whole full 24 hours fixing that error. But I think because of that, I think it got um, maybe it got flagged because I hired someone off Fiverr to do like a really quick like interior design job. That's the only thing I can think of.
So I'll let you know why I ask is because, and this is very selfish on my part, but maybe some other people have similar ideas, is that I want to write like nonfiction books about Latin America and explore some stories that haven't really been told, but they're nonfiction books. But so I had this one example where maybe you've heard that Chichen Itza in Mexico was really kind of discovered by archaeologists from Boston, from Harvard, and from Yale. And 100 years ago, the what's it called, the titans of American industry, like Carnegie and Ford and these guys, they were financing expeditions to Mexico to go, uh, discover all this stuff from the Mayan culture and the Olmec culture, and they were sending explorers to do scientific research because Mexico just wasn't really investing in it. And I was looking on Amazon and stuff, and I just couldn't find too many books about this piece of history, either about the stories from the explorers themselves or just kind of about this whole situation. And it's a very real thing because there's on the Harvard campus they have like the biggest collection of Mayan uh, uh, relics and artifacts in the world. Actually, other outside of Mexico is in Boston on the Harvard campus. And I thought it'd be cool to write a nonfiction book about this, and have it's pretty easy to do the outline, right? It's like chapter 1, like who was financing these expeditions, what was the state of understanding and discovery prior to the arrival of the American archaeologists. What did the American archaeologists discover, right? And so you can kind of write a book, and you could almost maybe, if the AI gets really good, kind of have AI help you write the book. But I'm almost like this is going to be futile because AI could basically write the whole book once some of the primary texts have been scanned and they're more available online. Then the AI could like read the scans of the other previous books that you'd be using as references, and they could just do the whole book for you, and they could probably like compile it, and like it's crazy, right? So I don't know what the state of like nonfiction writing would be at this point in time.
Yeah, that's to be TBD. I don't know. I mean, my AI right now is not good enough. They're not going to write a quality book. If it's 6 months where they can write a better book than the average writer, if it's 2 years, if it's 5 or 10 years, I'm not really sure. Um, but there's a lot of there's like I'm writing a book. I'm reading a book on Stephen King called On Writing,
Hmm.
and I
It's
don't know
his book.
why.
Yeah.
It's his book, yeah. It's the title is On Writing, and I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure out what it is, but when I start reading it, it's a nonfiction book. When I start reading it, I can't put it down because it's really interesting to read, and there's subtleties that he's using. His style is keeping me engaged. It's just words on a paper, but an AI bot, there's no way. There's no chance that it can get even close to a skilled writer at this point. But AI is interesting. We'll see if we don't fuck it up. Humans typically we're really good at fucking shit up. AI has a lot of potential, but we could also just kind of fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of ideas for some of these books, and I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool, but at the same time, I think it might become like obsolete.
Well, there's a lot of like what you said. I didn't know that, and there's a lot of forgotten history. There's a lot of history. What we have recorded is like just a tiny fraction. There's a lot of recorded history that is out there and interesting, and people want to know. You just said one of them, um, and it would be cool if you write one. It's a good experience, and we can talk about that later in a different podcast about like writing a good book is just one aspect and it's just a small aspect. I'm sure there's a ton, hundreds and thousands of really really epic books out there that no one knows about because it doesn't matter
Marketing,
if you write the best book in the world if no one buys it. Yeah.
right? All right, yeah, we could talk a bit about book marketing. I mean, I guess you already have a bit of a brand and following, of course, and you've built up authority in the Airbnb market. Is there anything that you're doing differently with the second book launch in terms of trying to get new eyeballs on it and taking a different approach this time?
Oh yeah, huge different approach. This book, so in this book, part of it is I have what I call a deal sheet. And I don't mention any tools and softwares by name in the book. What I do is, hey, I mention the service and then I refer people to the deal sheet, which has my recommendation, my top recommendation in a bunch of categories that Airbnb hosts would be interested in. And so I went to these partners and I said, hey, if you want to be included in this deal sheet, if you want, and my last book, by the way, sold 50,000 copies by word of mouth. So if you want to be in this, I would love you to be in this. I like your service. I use the service. I would like a mutually beneficial deal here. And so what the deal is for a lot of them is they'll post me to their social media, blog posts, podcasts. But the biggest mover, I think, is they'll send at least one dedicated email to their lists. And so I have dedicated emails going out to more than 600,000 people over the next couple months. And so that's the biggest difference that I'm doing. And right now I'm looking at the book, I'm ranked number 7,000. So there's millions of books on, I don't know how impressive 7,000 sounds, but there's millions of books on Amazon. So if you're ranked in the top 50,000, that's pretty damn good. So in the top 10,000, that's extremely good. My last book was ranked 15,000 at the maximum. So it's off to a good start, but that's my marketing that was my marketing tactic for this time. I've got QR codes in the book as well, so it's easy for someone to come on over, enter their email address, and get these bonus items. I have 8 different bonus items. So if you might not be interested in the deal sheet, maybe you're interested in one of the other 7. You give me your email, you'll get not only that bonus item but also the deal sheet.
And then, how else do you try to increase your ranking in on the Amazon platform?
Oh, that's something that I'm researching now. I didn't for optimize your Airbnb. I just wrote the best book I could write, and I put it out there. And luckily, it was well received. And it was just I spent $0 on advertising, and I didn't look at keywords. I didn't do any of that for this book. I did look into it a little bit. So, like my title, for example, there's a service called Publisher Rocket, and it's like Amazon is SEO as well. It's a search engine. So so my title is partly built based on keywords. So uh, I have price, specifically the word price. I have book direct in my title, and of course Airbnb, because these are search terms, relevant search terms. Also in the in the description, the book description, the sales copy. Also, I don't know for sure, but I think that probably Amazon, if they don't scan the whole book for keywords, they at least scan the the section names and the chapter names. So I made
Mm-hmm.
sure to include a variety of vacation rental, for example, short term rental in those titles as well. And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning about advertisements as well. This year I'll spend some money on advertisements on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of SEOified your book a bit.
Yeah, as well as I could. Really basic stuff. I just didn't have time to look into it that much, but that's on my to do list as well.
And who's your target market? Is it people looking to get into the game, or is it people who are already operating multiple units?
There's three target markets. The first one is, yes, people already short term rental hosts, people who are interested in short term rentals. I have a various information about that. And then also traditional real estate investors, whether that's commercial or long term, interested in moving some of their portfolio into short term rentals. And I specifically focus on people, I say, 10 or less listings.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have 100 listings, 100 properties, that's fine, but I'm writing for people who want up to 10 listings. That's where I feel that I'm the best.
Maybe this is too insider. You can feel free to save this juicy information for people that buy the book. But what do you think are like the big three, top three mistakes that hosts are making?
The top 3 mistakes the hosts are making. The first one will be interior design, in no particular order. Interior design. It really sets you apart. Any two listings with one has clearly better interior design, they're going to win. That's one that's often under leveraged. It seems maybe intimidating as a topic. The second one is pricing. I quadrupled the income for my here at the Belmonte Penthouse. I quadrupled the income from the past owner, and I did that for various reasons. But maybe the biggest reason was pricing. So you got to master pricing. It's not that hard with a little bit of education. I think the thing with pricing is like um, a lot of people just don't get pricing and then they give up on it. But it's like, well, where else do we? They're not a natural at this, and then they give up. It's like, where else do we do that? Where we just expect to be a natural right away? Like when you learn to ride a bike, you learn to ride a bike. When you learn to drive a car, you learn to drive a car. So you have to learn how to price your listing. There's no difference in this.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I'll say, which is a difference from all Airbnb experts, is take your own photos. A lot of
Oh,
hosts, yeah, and I have that opinion now because I hired 8 photographers to photograph this place, including a videographer. And I did that for research, but also because I wanted the absolute best photos. And I was so disappointed with what they did. They brought in a professional camera and they did that, and lighting was good too. But they didn't really get the angles. They didn't move things around. They didn't have a creative eye, which is really what I thought they did have. And so a lot of the photos on my Airbnb listing, they're of my eye, of my angles. Um, and so with such an important aspect of your Airbnb listing, which is the photos, to shuffle that responsibility out to somebody else who has less skin in the game for your success seems a little bit, now that I think about it, seems a little bit crazy to me. And it's not to say that you shouldn't do professional photographers. There's if you don't have time or you just don't want to learn, again, you can, just like pricing, you have to learn how to take photos, but it's not that difficult. And whenever you update your house or if you buy new ones, you don't have to pay someone, you don't have to go by their schedule. You don't what if the weather's bad that day? Each room as well has different times. So my hot tub, I took that at about 5 p.m. when the lights kind of going down. I turned the hot tub light on. I turn the lights to get that ambiance. In the living room, I got that at the middle of the day to get all the light coming in.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense because I may or may not have a Airbnb rental I'm working with. We're paying, some photographers $150 to come in that are related to the property management company. But if they only come in from like 2 to 4 p.m., they might not be getting the right time of day and the ambiance or the golden hour.
Yep. Yep. And also, I'll just highlight this again in case it wasn't clear. But like staging is super important. Is the most important thing. Like looking at it with your eyes. I'm looking at my living room here, and there's a coffee table, and I specifically remember this coffee table in terms of taking photos because when I took a photo with that coffee table, the living room looked really cluttered, but in real life, it looks fine. So I took that coffee table out for the photo, and the photo looked way better, way better. And so these photographers, they wouldn't do that. None of them would do that. And so it's also things like, setting up silverware on the table or not. A photographer's not going to do that. That's you. You will. That's part of staging. I have a plant over here to the right. Sometimes I put the plant next to the couch to get some green in there. Sometimes I didn't, and I wanted to take both those photos to figure out which one looked better as a photo. These things are part of the reason which sets me apart from everyone else. Is I think my photos are epic.
There you go. So staging, take your own photos, pricing, interior design. It's big. Seems like you could really like spiff up a unit big time just by, like you look at the listings online on Airbnb and pretty much all of them, you look at them and you say, these guys could be making so much more money if they just spiced it up a little bit and took better photos.
Yes, I could. And the crazy thing is, it's not hard. It's really not that hard. There's a lot of great Airbnb hosts out there. And going back to the example I just said, and we mentioned, like, what are the bad hosts doing? They're doing things like not providing scissors. I'm going to leave them a 5-star review because of what I said earlier. But imagine if someone else was there and they didn't provide a blender, they didn't provide laundry detergent, they didn't provide scissors, they didn't provide anything for the oven. You know, are they going to get a 5-star review? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But these are literally $75 in total to buy all of this stuff. And I bought, by the way, that the unit was, I think it was like $2,000. So it's not like I bought a cheap unit. It was like, rather upper end. Mm-hmm. So these are the really simple mistakes that hosts are making that they're making it. Maybe they don't care, or maybe they just don't understand what the kind of the consensus, the general consensus is for a good Airbnb is. But, so this is why there's so many opportunities in Airbnbs, even in markets that you would consider saturated, is most of the hosts don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I have one random question. You know how on Airbnb, you're always kind of setting your range to like the bottom 1/3 or like the bottom 1/3 in terms of the cost basis on a per night or per month basis, right? And you're just like, okay, I'm in the bottom third. Like, let's see which one's the best value. And then you always look and you see the top third and it's like, 15,000 a month, $1,000 a night. Do people do that just to see if someone will book it, or is it like realistic and there's actually activity going on, an equivalent amount of activity at kind of the upper end of the spectrum?
Well, you can look at the reviews, but in general, no. At the upper end of the spectrum, you have very wealthy folks who just kind of want to do this as a project or a hobby, and they're putting a ridiculous price on there, and they're just like, well, I don't need the money, but if it rents for $2,500 a night, yeah, I'll take it. That's what the majority of those places are at. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so funny. It's like I almost want to get rich just so that I'm not on like the bottom 1/3 of the Airbnb slider.
Well, here's a tip for you. Go. I look at three sections as well, like the top half, and I just email a few of those listings, and I say, so I look at the price, I take out the fee, so I convert the price to the local currency as well. So I'm speaking with the host in terms of what the host is seeing on their end, and then I take 40% off. And I have a message that I say, hey, I'm coming to town. I'm on a bit of a budget, like your place. I'm a great guest. I'm not here to party. I don't smoke. And then I give them a budget. I give them my price. Okay. It's, 8 million Colombian pesos. So I say, I'm willing, my budget is 6 million Colombian pesos. Now, 40% is obviously a lot. So they're not going to, I don't think anyone's ever been like, oh, sure. But you set the anchor. It's a term in psychology. You've anchored it such a low price that if they're at all willing to accept a discount, well, maybe they give you a 20% discount, which is still, probably pretty good on monthly, especially on monthly rentals. That's my hack there.
And is that something you're doing only on that top quadrant as like a Hail Mary, or do you do that as a matter of course every single time you're booking your monthly rentals?
No, you can do that. I don't always do that because if I do that, it adds an extra couple days onto the process because I have to
Right.
wait and go back. But when I do it, it doesn't have to be the upper quadrant. It could be anything at all. It works the same exact way. Just
I have
convert it to
a
the local
related question to
currency.
that. So, and I do that too. I think a lot of people still aren't even aware that you can message a host and request a discount, especially for long-term stays. So, guys, you just basically you kind of put in your date range and then you click contact host and say, hey, a little bit out of my budget, but it looks great. And then you get a discount. Do you think there's any downside to hitting up like 10 hosts and just like seeing who bites? Because I've done it kind of both ways where I have my one or two units that I really want and I just kind of message them, but I feel like I don't have a good negotiating position. And then there's other times where I'll just kind of as an experiment, I'll just go ham and message like 15, 20 hosts and just see who hooks me up with like a sick discount.
Yeah. So the strategy there is um, what you should do. It takes more time, but what you should do is you shouldn't ask. Another strategy is not to ask for discount right away. Message the host, say you're interested in the place, you're coming, you've stayed 2,000 nights, you're not there to party, you just you're not ready to book, you just wanted to say hi, see if it's still available. Is it still available? I know some listings are on Airbnb are active but not active, or are live but not active. Then the host responds to you. Then you might ask them another question like, hey, by the way, what cross streets are you at? Or, hey, by the way, do you have a blender or a desk? Do you have a desk chair? Ask them a few questions over like a couple days, and then they're invested. The host feels like they're more invested. So now you have a somewhat of a connection with them. So
Hmm.
now you ask them for a discount, and I find that works better for them to say yes. They're still not going to accept the 40% discount, but I do find the level of response and acceptance is higher in that with that strategy.
I agree with you, but I wonder if it could almost be the opposite. And they'll be like, they might think, oh, this guy Danny's pretty invested in this unit. We don't have to give him a discount.
Oh, yeah, potentially. I mean, it's not like 100% that it works. I'm just saying sometimes it could also, I thought you were going to say something different. It could also work differently where the host is like, oh, this bastard, he just wanted a discount. He should have not wasted my time and just asked me
uh,
straight up.
uh,
That's for sure going to happen a percentage of the time for sure.
yeah, I think when you get into that, uh, asking on the third email thing, it kind of, I mean, that does take time. It's kind of like a mental thing. But yeah, it's kind of an exciting one where you message like 10 hosts and then they're all like hitting you with these offers and you're
Yeah.
just like, "Oh shit, should I like accept this one? Should I wait for a couple more coming in?" And it's like,
I message everyone. I open up a bunch of tabs and then I message them all at the same time. And then
yeah, copy and paste.
I come back. Yeah, I come back the next day. So I'm not responding to them like real time unless I'm really in a hurry. So I'll come back the next day or like 8 hours or 12 hours later because there are a lot of hosts with good listings who don't know what they're doing, who don't have automatic responses on, who have a day job, who are sleeping, whatever. And so I'll wait, 12 or 18 hours, and then I'll respond to everyone who's responded to me, and then I'll check the messages that weren't responded to just to make sure that those weren't like my my really one that I actually really wanted.
Hmm.
That I may be able to instant book if I wanted to. Because a lot of people, just don't even respond. They're like, it's instant book. I just instant book or not. They don't want to be bothered with it. That's how I'll do it. And then I'll do it for like typically two days.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that location and you know how it's like approximate, do you ask them for specific locations and try to like street view it and like really get into the weeds, or you're just like, this is good enough. This is basically in the zone I want.
I used to ask for cross streets because there's been a couple times where I got burned. So I used to ask for cross streets, and sometimes I still do that, especially if there's a specific place I want to be, like here in Medellin. I want to be within a 10-minute walk of Parque Lleras. And I booked a place here once, and it was like a 20-minute walk, which might not sound like that much, but an extra 10 minutes going there 3 or 4 times a day. And also it was on a hill. So I was a little bit sweaty coming back. Mm-hmm. I felt that was like kind of shitty. So sometimes I do ask for cross streets. Yeah, especially if I'm like super familiar and really know exactly where I want to stay. That could come in handy.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever help people book Airbnbs for them? Do you think there's kind of a market for like a concierge service?
There wouldn't be enough money in that for me to do that. I don't know if I can't imagine how much someone would pay for that. But I do get people messaging me like, can you recommend me an Airbnb, or like, what's the best Airbnb? Like for me, they're like crazy questions because I'm like, what do you mean? Just go on Airbnb and find yourself. But I guess there is a market who they don't know technology, or they don't know the platform, or they think like I have some insider secrets or something. I'm not really sure what it is, but the questions seem strange to me. I've never asked like, wait, why are you asking me? Where would I stay? Just go on Airbnb and figure it out yourself.
Because I find that I do have people ask me this a little bit. They want me to help them with trip planning, but also just in my kind of personal life, whenever I try to travel with people, I've had it where I'd say, look, I've had people that I've traveled with for like multiple months, and I'd say, look, I booked the past like 6 Airbnbs. Can you book the next one? And then they'll be like, yeah, I can do it this time. And then they'll be sending me like the weirdest locate, and like everything they send me will be wrong. I'll be like, no, like this location is wrong. Like there's some red flags here. There's not even a desk, blah, blah, blah. And so people, it's weird. It's like people don't know how to book it right. And I don't have confidence in letting someone else do it that's traveling with me.
That's a fair point. There's things that I and you have learned to look for, like, where's the desk? How does a desk chair look? That window is closed. Is that window closed? Probably not, because it has a great view. Where's the blender in the kitchen? So the layout of the house. Yeah, I can see that for sure. But again, I don't know how much you think someone would pay for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Even if it was like $250 and it takes you a half hour or something, that's cool, I guess.
Oh, I don't think someone's going to pay that. I mean, I would do it for that. That's a $500 hourly rate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. If you never thought about like launching a service like that, just be like concierge booking. Just be like, type in your price range. Maybe they have to give you their credit card somehow, and then it's like, I will book it. Give me your date range. Give me your price range. It's like, yeah, it could be very automated, right? Where it's just like, give me your date range, give me your price range, and I will book the best possible thing within those constraints.
Yeah. They have that on flights as well, and I have used that. So it's interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about on my personal blog, I write a lot, and one of those is about like Airbnb, booking Airbnbs. And I recently decided that I'm going to try and monetize it, and I'm going to try and add some sort, like I have a gym, like, how to meet girls at the gym. And I was going to like put like a PDF. Hey, if you want to pay this for the PDF, here's my like insider secrets. Or on like how to write a book, if you want a consult call with me, here's this. So I might try that as well. Put it on the blog, my Airbnb blog. Hey, if you want me to book your Airbnb for you, send me this form. Could be an interesting, just kind of a hobby pastime. Test out the
Yeah,
market.
because the Airbnb is a thing, and it is a little bit one of those things that people don't realize they need, but they definitely need. But and then there's kind of a larger thing where maybe you get a lot of messages like this as well, where people want someone to hold their hand their first time in Latin America or their first time in Medellin, right? Where they say like, wouldn't it be cool if like I could have someone to basically be like my tour guide and show me around, but not like a lame tour guide, but like a real like cool guy who could maybe get me some restaurant recommendations, tell me what nightclub to go to, maybe like figure out a couple things for me, and kind of be like a, I don't even know what you call it, but just like on the ground concierge for first time digital nomads. I've had a lot of people ask me for something like that.
Yeah, well, I part of what I offer for the Belmonte Penthouse is a concierge, a fluent English speaking concierge to all my guests. And if they want to pay extra, this guy will be with them the full time here. But if not, they can just ask him different questions. Can you book us? I always find this strange as well. Like someone's like, "Can you book me a reservation at this restaurant?" And it's like, well, okay, that's cool. I mean, I think maybe it's like you feel fancy if someone else does it for you, but like you could just literally just call. Everything is done on WhatsApp here. So I think that's definitely a service that my guests
Yeah.
value a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently stayed at an Airbnb, and it was like a mansion, and we had a bunch of our buddies there, and it had like an on-site, basically like concierge guy. It was like this big fat guy that lived in like the building connected to it next door,
Yeah.
and he'd come. He would get us our big jugs of water, and he could help do like little errands and groceries, and he'd organize and meet the cleaner or stuff like that. And it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool service to have.
Yep. Yeah. There's some of those here as well.
Yeah, I think there's two things. There's like a concierge attached to the Airbnb itself who can just kind of help with like household things, but then there's like a, I don't know, almost like a cool guy in the city concierge where he can kind of tell you like the do's and don'ts of Medellin, how to move, and kind of just make sure you have a better experience, because the difference between a bunch of guys coming down from New York City and they don't have any idea what they're doing and they just do like kind of the most obvious things versus if they had like a real kind of insider, kind of crafting their experience, they'd have a very different experience.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I have this idea that kind of sounds like what you're saying, and I would love to like start it, but it's a huge project. It's called like local companion, where
Yes.
yeah, what I'm envisioning is like there's an app, and there's these locals on the app who are specialized in neighborhoods and nightlife or food or events or some music, and someone coming to the town can submit a question. Hey, I'm looking for a sports bar in this neighborhood, and then that they can tell them. Or you're in a city in the USA. Can I park here? Here's the sign. Here's the parking sign. Can I park here? Or I remember even random questions like I think I was in Vietnam, and they don't do sliced bread there, or maybe I couldn't find like sourdough bread, one of those two. And so I would
Yeah.
love to ask like a local companion, hey, I'm looking for sourdough bread. Where do I find it? And I'm sure I could find it. Someone would know like, oh, there, go there. That would be a very cool app, I think.
Yeah. Dentists. People want all these random services. By the way, sourdough bread. I've had Jake Nomada mention that he tries to find sourdough bread everywhere he goes. Is there something behind that?
Well, yes, I don't know for him, but probably it's similar. I met him rather similar. Sourdough bread is going to be the least processed. It takes like a day and a half for the yeast to rise, and
Mm,
so it's more of a healthy type bread. It's the bread. It's like the first type of bread we started making as humans.
okay.
It's like more
Jesus.
easily digestible. Yeah, Jesus bread. It always comes
Jesus
in that.
bread. Okay. Good aside. I guess when we're doing shout outs, Sam Miller finally responded to me when I said, hey, I'm talking to Danny. What should I ask him about. You are you ready for his? Oh well, it's very underwhelming. I said recording a pod with Danny tomorrow. What
Okay.
questions should we ask him? And he responded, "How to find and make profitable Airbnbs."
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
guess that's what
yeah,
I guess that's what I'm known for mostly nowadays, huh?
yeah. How long have you known Sam, by the way? And again for the audience, Sam Miller, previous podcast guest. I think he was also like episode 4, 5, 6, one of those, and we'll have to get him on again for round two. But how long you known Sam for?
I think I met him the first time in like 2019, and I think I met him because I saw some of his YouTube videos, and I may have reached out to him then, and then we maybe met up, something like that, or at a gringo event in the gringo vortex zone, something like that. It's been 3 or 4 years, so.
And now you guys are like Medellin Airbnb buddies or LatAm real estate buddies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He moved on to Tulum. I'm still in Medellin for the time being.
And what's his deal? He's kind of almost um, contracting himself out to different projects around Latin America, wherever there's, I guess, a big development, and being like, I can help you market it, and we'll make it very. I know he's all about kind of incorporating nature into the development, and so it's kind of like, what's the term I'm thinking of? But yeah.
Well, I think you got to ask him that, but because I actually don't know exactly what he's doing, but I do know there's some things he's doing, and I don't know how private they are. He does have some programs going on related to real estate projects in Latin America.
Hmm. Pretty exciting stuff. You don't have to reveal, but I know there was. I'm not sure how much I should say either, but you know how there was that group he was trying to get off the ground, and I guess he's kind of pivoted a little bit. But I'm really bullish on what he's trying to do in terms of like turnkey lifestyle investments in Latin America. I think that's like the best approach, where people probably want to use them a little bit, but also rent them out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so for anyone who's not familiar or who didn't watch that episode, listen to that episode, Sam started a company here, and I won't name it by name, but he started a real estate like company here in Colombia. He was stayed in Colombia for like 13 years, something crazy like that, and it was exactly like that. It was like real estate investments, lifestyle investments, and international foreign investments in real estate. And so something happened with that firm, and he went. He's doing something else now. So he's in the phase now, as I understand, of finding that next step. And so he's exploring a few different avenues.
Hmm. He seems to be pretty close to uh, kind of at the end of the exploration phase, and I get the vibe that he's like he knows what he wants to do now.
Well, yeah, he definitely knows to a great extent what he wants to do. I mean, real estate, lifestyle investments, passive investments, Latin America for sure.
And I think the turnkey thing is huge, because I think no, like I think everyone is down to invest in Latin America, especially if it could come with a residency permit or something. But nobody wants the headache of having to speak Spanish and deal with the red tape or the day-to-day operations of it. And I noticed that there's kind of a lack of a lack of turnkey opportunities on the market, where maybe you can buy into an investment, but then there's already a property manager set up, and they just really have everything kind of dialed in, and all they need is the capital. I think opportunities like that are going to be huge.
I agree, and I think they'll be even bigger if the world opens up more and travel becomes more easy and affordable. There's some things down the road that I've heard about for years now, but like even people are developing flights that go into outer space, inner space. I don't know, but they actually use the orbit, and so they turn off
Hmm.
their gas and they use the Earth's spin, and you can get to like London in 45 minutes or something, and it's the same price as air transport now. So those are been pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Electric planes are also something that I read maybe on Twitter somewhere, where it's like potential to have an electric plane. So there's some cool things coming down the pipeline.
I definitely have this idea that, right now to fly to Brazil, it's, you know, like 15 hours in the air, right?
Yeah.
It's like 7, 8 hours from Panama, um, etc. And then, but what's going to happen to the real estate market in these countries when that flight time is cut in half? Or even what you're saying, it takes, 2 hours to get to Brazil. And because they have the best beaches in the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so much amazing stuff. And it's very under touristed just because it's so far and people say, you know what, I'm just going to go to Colombia. I'm just going to go to Playa. Like Brazil is just too damn far. But I think as flights get shorter, it really kind of, the world gets smaller. And I think that could be bullish for real estate. That's just like a little bit too far for the average gringo right now.
Yep. Yeah, I think it would increase the future world you're envisioning. I think it would increase tourism for sure, but not necessarily increase people's interest with learning Portuguese or really getting that culture. So these deals where they're passive investments are that's where they but someone could go down there. Okay, now I could go down 6, 8 times a year because it's only 3 hour trip. Now they're interested in they have capital to put into real estate. So that's where
Mhm.
these deals, these passive lifestyle investment type deals can take off. There's definitely some potential there.
Yeah, definitely two different things. I wouldn't base my investing on electric planes coming anytime soon, but um, but I do think long term, I'm like, if Brazil gets closer, like it's going to be a whole different story. But it's kind of a different thing than the just talking about short term rentals. But yeah, it makes sense in a lot of places. You want to. I think a lot of people want to live a trifecta life or like a snowbird life, and maybe do summers in San Francisco or New York or Toronto, and then do winters in Latin America. And they might want to have that place that they can own and rent out when they're not there, and they just need something a little bit more turnkey. Again, the book Profitable Properties. Really excited that you put out the second book. By the way, I know we going to mention it or are we not going to mention it that you actually have like two or three other like secret books.
I have, yeah, this is my fourth. This is my fourth book. My second, I wrote a second and third book in 2019, and the first one is about it's about learning languages, but it's more so like a toolbox. I identify a an efficient strategy to learn languages, really to learn anything. But I identify efficient strategy and then a bunch of like tools and apps and strategies to increase your ability to write, listen, read, etc. That one is called Zilch to Conversational. You can find them also on my author profile. You can just like click the author name on Amazon, and that'll
Hmm.
bring up my author page, which has the books. The other one is called For Travelers, Not Tourists, and it's a book about traveling, obviously, and it helps you find where in the world is best for you based on who you are, based on your own criteria. And I kind of walk you through my process and how I develop my criteria.
Mm.
And then also I give you ideas on how to connect with your location. I talk about different neighborhoods and how to find events and meet people. And, it's there. These two books are more of guides. They're like, I don't know, 90 pages, 100 pages. They're shorter guides.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like the for travelers not tourists is a lot of what we've been talking about. Is it the same kind of criteria that you used, like your 10-20 point system?
Well, in that book, I give my process, my system, and but I also lay out like, but this is my system, so your system might be different. If you really like, for example, museums, let's say, then your criteria might be, well, what you might do a research online to figure out what cities have the best museums and at what times and exhibits and things like that. Just have one quick example. But I also talk about pretty specifically about like, how choosing the micro neighborhood, which is what we talked about, not just like a neighborhood like Poblado here in
Yes,
Medellin. Poblado is a rather big neighborhood. There's walkable parts and there's not walkable parts. So choosing the micro neighborhood is actually even more important. Talk about what to bring, what to do
the
before
micro
arrival.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
You should write another little book called Micro Neighborhoods and kind of like flesh out that concept. I think that'd be cool.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned it in the profitable properties as well in terms of investing, because I also think in terms of investing, micro neighborhood is more important. And I even highlight a dude who's doing rental arbitrage here who has a similarly looking Airbnb in the same neighborhood, Poblado. He has 5 bedrooms. He's got a hot tub just like me. Um, but he's making 1/3 of what I'm making. And I believe it's because of his micro neighborhood. He's 15-minute drive from Parque Geras. I'm a 5-minute walk.
That's exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah, and it's the our guests our guests don't want to be 15-minute walk. They 15-minute drive. They want to be 5-minute walk. They very specifically. That's like I believed that was a high criteria on new guests coming to the city, and new guests really don't know the prices exactly as well. So they think it's cheap, but it's actually kind of expensive for this area. So that was my specific clientele, FPG. I call them future potential guest, but it all comes down to that micro neighborhood.
Yes, yes. The micro neighborhood, definitely a big takeaway from the episode. Sick, man. Well, yeah, let's get to wrapping up, and feel free to share again the book with the audience, and anywhere that you want to direct the audience.
You can find me, I have 2 personas online. My personal persona is called Danny Boo Boo, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, my personal blog. And then my professional, if you're more interested in investing and short-term rental investing, then optimize my Airbnb. You could do a Google search there and you'll find the same things all under that name: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, website.
Sick, man. Well, always good catching up with you, Danny. Yeah, thank you so much for dropping the knowledge on us today regarding Airbnbs. And we're all super looking forward to reading Profitable Properties. Link is in the description as well.
Yeah, man, right on. I'm gonna have to come out to Panama. I'll hit you up when I do. It's been 3 years now since I've been there, but I've been hearing it come up more and more.
Could be a good Airbnb spot. Lots of through traffic here.
Lots of potential. Direct flights from a lot more areas than Colombia.
Mm-hmm. Or we'll talk offline about maybe doing something in Asia this summer. But thanks again, Danny Boo Boo, Danny Rusteen, legend.
Till next time, happy hosting.